Welcome! I want to share with you some settings that I changed on my camera since I started making YouTube videos more than 3 years ago. The type of videos that I'm doing are kind of a review video, so I'm doing lockpicking videos, as you might know. And that means that my camera is mounted on a tripod and I'm showing small parts in front of the camera, most of the time with an artificial source of light. Also, the loudness of my voice is more or less constant, so I'm talking from the back of the camera, and sometimes the little items in front of the camera make their own sound. The 3 settings that I'm going to discuss with you is white balance, image stabilization, and automatic loudness control. And this guy will help us. Let's start with the white balance of the camera. The same object with the same color may appear different on the video depending on what light you use, natural light or different kind of artificial light. And so the camera needs to be adjusted to make the color appear the same no matter what light you use. And the standard setting is the automatic light balance, so the camera tries to figure out what kind of light and what light temperature is used and tries to adapt. So let's see what effect that has. So that's how it looks like with automatic white balance, and I'm using artificial light, and the lamp is a halogen lamp. The colors do not show up perfect, so the head of this guy here is actually bright white, and also the stripes of the neck or tail are white. And that's the first problem, so depending on which kind of artificial light you are using, the colors might not show up perfect. The second problem is that the colors also change depending on what you film. So the background or the brightness of the scene, of the picture, does influence the color, as the camera needs to guess what light you are using, and so it makes an assumption based on what it sees. And if you change the background and the brightness, colors will change. So now it's actually pretty white. Now it becomes yellowish again. So this is not optimal. Okay, now let me change the camera setup to user-defined white balance. And for doing this, you need to have a sheet of paper, and then you let the camera adjust to this whiteness as the reference. And then the camera doesn't change the white balance while filming, and so you might have a much better color experience. Let me quickly change that. Now let's change the setting on the camera to have a custom white balance. And I'm filming with my phone at the moment, so you can see the automatic white balance on the phone brings pretty strange effects. So now the sheet of paper appears bright white as well as the head of this little guy. But when I change the angle and different objects come into the picture, the color of the paper changes to yellow. Pretty annoying actually. But now let's continue changing the white balancing setup here. I go to manual or custom white balance and I push this button. Now the camera calculates what it needs to set up internally to make this appear bright white, and it's done. So no matter what color you see, I see that this is white as well as that is white. It's the same type of white. And so I can show you now from the camera's perspective how this looks like. All right, back on the camera, let's remove the paper. And I think this looks much better now. So my hand appears at the right kind of color, and the little guy here has natural white head and also the stripes are white as they should be. And I think now it should not change no matter what kind of object we use together with this little guy. Oops, fell over. So it's white, it stays white. Head stays white if I zoom in or zoom out. So it might also not 100% perfect, but it's much better. So the colors appear pretty good, almost natural, and the change of color depending on what object is next or in the background of the actual object that you are filming is much less. So I really recommend that you, before you start your video, if you have the chance to do a manual or a custom setup for your white balance, to do so. It's pretty easy. Just take a white sheet of paper and press the manual button for the white balance and you're good to go. The colors will appear much nicer and they won't change while doing the video. Okay, so the next setting that I want to discuss is image stabilization. Currently it's set off, but I think the default is on most cameras, and it's pretty useful when filming in the hand so that your video won't get very shaky. So let me demonstrate this to you. I'm currently walking, or I'm simulating walking, and it's a little bit shaky, as you can see. I try to hold the camera steady, but I cannot do this perfect, so it's a little bit shaky. And now when I move the camera to the right, it's a little bit shaky and it doesn't make a nice video. Now let's change it to on. So now image stabilization is set on. It's set to dynamic, which is the second level. I have two of them, and you can see that when I'm now walking, it gives a much more stable view, and when I'm moving the camera to the right, it's much less shaky as it was before, and it's much more enjoyable to watch. That's a great feature for these kind of applications, but I want to show you why this might be bad for videos like I'm doing, so review videos or lockpicking videos where you are showing small objects in front of a camera. So now the camera is back on the tripod, but the image stabilization is still active. If you're only showing objects in front of the camera and if you are not moving the camera at all, this might not be a problem. Although I've also seen videos where people have not moved the camera, but the image stabilization tries to let the object stay in the same position on the picture, and so it gets a really shaky video. But what I can show you with my camera is that if I'm moving my camera to the left and to the right, it tries to somehow make the movement smooth, and this takes some time, and sometimes you get a really shaky video. So I'm moving it just left and right, and it sometimes tries to make it smooth by moving. Yeah, that's what I mean. If it's then moving it left and right, although I'm not moving the camera at all anymore. So now let's try left, right, stop, and it's still moving left and right, although the camera is still steady. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like on a ship with high waves, and it becomes really shaky. So I think that's what should be avoided in a camera setup like this, where the camera is placed on a tripod and if you're only showing objects in front of it, and sometimes if you're moving the camera left and right, I think the best thing to do is to set the image stabilization to off, and so you get the best experience in your video. Last setting that I want to discuss with you, which is the amplification of the sound. So usually the camera is set to automatic mode by default, I believe. And what the camera does is to make very silent parts of the video more loudly, and vice versa. If it's very loud, it tries to reduce the loudness so that it becomes an overall balanced video with respect to sound. I've currently set my audio to automatic, and I want to show you, or I want to make it hearable for you, how this sounds like. So that's the audio setting set to automatic mode. That's how it sounds like, and that's a pretty good setting in most of the cases, because if you're talking quite quietly, you might still get heard. And if you're talking a little bit louder or even very loud, it might not get too loud. So that's a pretty good setting in normal circumstances, but it can also have a frightening effect, because if you're talking very quietly and suddenly you're talking much louder, it gets too loud before the camera can adjust itself to dim your voice, and so this is a little bit frightening, and I've heard this in some videos. I think that's the result of the automatic mode. So let's try that again. I'm speaking very quietly and suddenly I'm speaking much louder, and it's too loud, I believe. The other aspect is if you have something which is loud in front of the camera, your voice might get dimmed, and it also get dimmed a short moment afterwards. And I've also heard that in some videos where people have something loud in front of the camera and their voice got dimmed. They were hard to understand for a second afterwards. So let's try that. I'm not sure if this if this can be demonstrated here with my camera. So let's try it. I'm doing something really loud here in front of the camera, and I'm not sure if how this influences my voice, but I suspect that you will hear my voice much more quietly, and if I stop doing the noise, then it will come up to normal. So this is something that you don't want to have. You want to have your voice at constant volume and not get dimmed if something loud occurs in front of the camera. Okay, let's change the audio mode to manual. So it's now changed to manual, and let's try that again with the same kind of experiments. I'm speaking very quietly and suddenly I'm speaking much louder, and I think this has not the same effect that it had before, so it was less frightening, I hope. Let's try the noise experiment. I'm making a little bit of noise in front of the camera and speaking at the same time. And I think the voice should not get dimmed after I stop making the noise, because the camera is not allowed to do something automatically. Yeah, that's all I have for you on this topic. We had first the white balance, then we had the image stabilization, and third was the audio setting, and I prefer the audio setting set to manual, and afterwards I'm doing a little bit of audio post-processing to make it louder. I'm processing it with a compressor, but I'm not doing this for that video, so we'll get the full experience from the raw output of my camera. And yeah, so that's all I have for you. Actually, I hope it was helpful and a little bit entertaining with my little friend here. And yeah, until we meet again, happy picking, happy filming, cheers, and bye bye.